Meanwhile, there is more breaking news. One of our top stories this morning, the White House defending its right to seize your phone records. Reports of a secret government program monitoring the calls of tens of millions of Americans. Colonel Cedric Leighton is a former Deputy Director, National Security Agency, and former Joint Chiefs of Staff Intelligence Officer. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for your time here. Can you explain why this would be necessary?
Sure. Good morning, Bill. Well, basically what we're looking at here is the way to go through a whole bunch of information very, very quickly. And in this day and age of metadata and going through many, many reams of information, there are information processes, information culling processes that NSA uses that go into finding out who's talking to whom, why they're talking to them, and how long they're talking to them. And that basically was the gist of the court order that The Guardian found earlier.
Are you okay with this? Should we be okay with this?
Well, it depends. I am okay with the basic idea of going after folks who are connected to terrorist groups, and I think most Americans are okay with that. What you're looking at, though, is a lot of data, and it requires a lot of good control mechanisms put in place for the handling of that data. So when you're looking at these kinds of control mechanisms, I will tell you that having worked at NSA and associated agencies for quite some time, there are a lot of controls in place for this kind of information, and if those controls are followed, if the rules are followed, then there should not be that much of a problem with it. But you have to be very careful, and you have to be very careful that the rules not only stay the same or are improved from a civil liberties standpoint, but that they also are followed to a T by everybody involved in this collection process.
Give us a sense of the information they're gathering. What is it? Is it your name? Is it your address? Is it your phone number? Is it the content of your conversation? What is it?
It is everything except for the content of the conversation. So everything that you described, from the phone number to your name, possibly the address or your location if you're talking on a cell phone, those are the kinds of things that could be collected potentially under this court order. Now, having said that, there is so much that goes into this that you really don't have time when you're an agency like NSA to listen in on everybody's conversation, and you only listen in on those that you have a specific warrant for or have reason to believe that they are engaged in terrorist activities. So that's how it's supposed to work, and it's not designed to be intrusive in terms of the actual conversation. But as you and I both know, there's a lot that can be gleaned from metadata and from things like phone numbers and locational data.
I mean, just from Verizon here, 121 million customers in the first quarter. That's what they listed for their customer base here. You had 98 million wireless customers, 11 million residential phone lines, about 10 million commercial lines. Can you cite a case where a terrorist was caught and stopped through this type of surveillance?
Well, I can tell you that this type of surveillance was very important in wrapping up some of the loose ends from the Boston bombing. And I can also tell you that many of the terrorists that we were able to pick up in relation to 9/11 were either caught here in the United States or overseas. For example, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was a case in which some type of information similar to this was used. Other cases involve that. Most of them are still classified. But the basic idea is it's been extensively used, and it has been very, very useful in thwarting a whole bunch of terrorist attacks.
But you can clearly understand, I apologize for the interruption, about how people would think this was invasive into my life and this should not be happening. Now, it went into effect at the end of April. It's still in effect now. It goes until July 19th. Should we know that?
Well, when you look at the types of information that are gathered, sometimes it's important to not reveal your hand when you're gathering this type of information, because people will then switch to, let's say, another cell phone carrier if they're terrorists that are planning to do something. That's a possible reason to avoid publicizing it. Another thing is that this actually has a lot of historic precedents, going all the way back to World War II. When you look at what was done with Western Union and telegrams, the government intercepted a lot of that information not only during World War II, but in the run-up to World War II. So there's some historic precedents for it, but we have to be careful looking at the way we do this and making sure that our laws and our procedures meet the requirements of the digital age.
Indeed we do. Colonel, thank you. It's a changing time out there, as you well know.
Absolutely, Bill.
It's good to get your insight. Thank you. We'll be in contact with you to figure out what we need to know about this. Thank you, Colonel.
My
20
pleasure, Bill.
minutes before the hour now.